Alright, just started, loaded my project. This is the game I've been working on. I've been sort of doing bits and pieces with it. Might just hold on till we get some viewers though. La 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 la. This is what it looks like. It's a bit over the top at the moment. So first pop back into my standard window. Look at our landscape material that we've got at the moment. This doesn't really give much of an indication of what's going on with it. If I go back to the paint mode, actually, that'll probably give you a good idea. Landscape paint. And there's a few. So basically, because I have this many absolutely ridiculous level of materials in here, sorry, it's one material but lots of functions, lots of layers happening. It takes a while to compile whenever I start modifying. It looks great, or at least looks what I think is good, but it's messy. And if I go into visualizer, let's get a look at layer density, you can see this is all red. Red is bad. What's worse than red is pink, and what's even more worse is white. White is the pits. White means I've just got too much happening. Ideally, what I would like to do is reduce that without sacrificing too much in quality or too much in how it looks. And I have been sort of doing paint overs. That's why I've got a few greens. So our paint overs are set, so it's one texture or one layer. But you'll see it's not really usable like this either, because you just get that sudden pop in, pop out. It's a bit hard to see where it actually splits at the moment. That kind of shows, although that's another issue. Let's pop over somewhere else instead. Might be easier to see. Okay, there you go. So you see I've just gone over, painted that simple one layer. This one being the stone layer. So instead of getting that nice blend through, it's just all of a sudden I just drag a bit in here. Okay, now it's sort of behaving, but if I start adding more layers, then we just it gets a bit too complex. And again, if I start to rebuild the material, if I modify it too much, we get it coming up with 24,000 lines or whatever instructions. It's a lot. So let's see if I can actually trigger it off. If I go, here we go. There we go, compiling shaders, 434, you can see that at the bottom. It's just down here. Actually, it doesn't look like that comes up in the preview, but it's got the compiling shaders while it's got there. Oh, now we get a nice, not so nice. It's still doing the compiling, it's up to 244, sorry, down to. Anyway, the long story short is I want to basically make this more efficient. I want to get some of this featuring happening without going too heavy into I guess too heavy into having to paint extra layers, so I could probably cut that down to 3 or 4. That would be ideal. 3 would be best. I still want to have a separate layer for rock, for dirt, and the variations that go with it. Not too worried about stone and ice being separate layers. And at the moment you can see I've got 3 different snow layers. And that's not nice either, because it's good for getting a bit of variation in there, but it's just untenable really. And yeah, you can see that little bit of dirty snow we added. You can see here, let's pop that open a bit more. Get a bit of variation there, but and I have recently jumped to using a height blend instead of just a weight blend, so it does look a bit different again to what it was last looking like. Now, if you've seen any screenshots of this so far that I've been doing, it doesn't exactly look like what you might have seen. So what I'm going to do is just jump into the actual game portion of itself, just hit a play, and you can see here when we've got actual weather affecting the terrain, it looks a lot better. It's a little bit jerky at the moment, and I think part of that is just how taxing this material is, and it's probably kind of an amateur thing to just keep loading and loading complexity in there until it gets too stuttery to actually play well, and then go, oops, I need to optimize this. Now, this isn't my first attempt at doing it, and I'm not really sure what I'm doing half the time. But you can see here it's kind of like, it's alright. I'd like to get some more variation in how the snow covers, and at the moment we're not seeing much of the gloss come through, so because it is raining it is meant to get a bit glossy and to affect the material a little bit. But you can see it's not really happening there. Don't mind these stand-in NPCs. The other one you might have seen, if I go down to here, which is where it looks probably the best. Well, let's pop down. Okay, that's cool. That wasn't an intentional pun, but you know. If I fast forward, because I've got a little shortcut to speed up the time process so you can get the day sort of stuff happening. You got rain and snow happening at once, that's just because I've sped it up. You can see the shadows coming through, the lighting changes. This is where you start getting all the cool bits. And honestly, I think this is actually getting more from the actual atmosphere that's happening here rather than from the material itself. Now if I just freeze that a bit, you can see there's a bit of gloss there. You probably might see it a bit more down here. But again, I don't think it's really coming through quite as strongly as it was before, and that's probably to do with it switching to a height layer and height blend. Now you get a bit of specularity there. So that's just meant to do a light bit of wetness on the landscape. It's nice, but you know, it's expensive. The way it's set up now is pretty expensive, and because there are the 7 layers that I showed, it's applying that wetness and snow layer, the snow cover, per layer before it actually gets through, and I think it would be better if it also did that afterwards, either having a noise mask send through where this should be showing up or how frequently it should be showing up, or otherwise just applying it once. So yeah, at the moment the layer we're using at the moment looks like this, and come on, it's a bit much really. Got everything obviously plugged in with parameters so I can quickly speed things up, make changes in that without having to recompile all the time, but whenever I start trying to optimize it or make little bits better, I hit the same limit of 24,000 shader things to compile, and good night. I'll just drag this over, so this is just doing a quick mask for blending so I can sort of blend on the fly. Each of these functions is pretty similar, so yes, there's a bit of duplication going on here. Ideally it'd be nicer to actually have something that just passes all these parameters through, maybe as a parameter collection. I haven't really used those before though. Just sort of have that consistent. The other option is yeah, just having each layer a bit more bit smarter. Might still need to actually use some repetition there, so nesting the functions a bit. You can see it's not complex, it's not overly complex, it's just something that's sort of built up over time. You can see this function here, this is where we get the snow layer based on how snowy it is. What's this using? Some noise, rotating based on a parameter, and then just increasing how much snow cover there is and where it is. But it's really just tinting it, isn't it? It's not really using a material there. Wait, sorry, it's using a texture, but it's not doing much with it. That could have easily just been a noise that's passed through separately. If I go back to the wetness area, it's just passing in the material attributes as we get it. So yeah, it's a bit messy again. I probably wouldn't want it doing the same thing overall. And so other than those two bits there, it's got a bit of a blend based on how wet or dry it's meant to be, which is happening over the top of the snow layer. So there's not much really, well, there's not much different between them. One thing there is, so if we go back to this one again, sorry, you might have seen if I go back out, so right, let's see, we've got our little banding here happening like that. I had a suggestion by Chris Murphy, who does a pretty cool Udemy course on doing that. He sort of left it open and said, why don't you just try to get that sort of streaking happening? So eventually I did work out a way to do it. At the moment I'm using this stratified blend to actually do this, and god, it's doing it based on the dot product, so trying to actually reduce it to just be when it's vertical. You've got some generated bands there. That was based on a different sort of technique I'd found, or just through experimenting, but it's not super great. This one is using some parallel noise to try and mask it up a bit, which is something I'd sort of fed back through some other experiments. But really, it's not perfect. You probably see the very top of it looks like it just starts suddenly. That's very clean there, whereas the bottom is not like that. The bottom streaks here and there and blends in and out, and that's the sort of effect I'd want all around it. And the other variation you might see, if I go back to, not there, but I'll just turn off the fog for a second so you can see it a bit clearer. You can see this area here is just dirt, so if I go to visualizer, go to layer density, see that's all green, that's because there's just the one there. Go back to lit, go back to normal, sorry. Even though this is just a dirt layer, we've got some noise happening there too to actually make it a bit more varied. And I'll just pop into the noise one, although it's using the same concept throughout. You just have to excuse too, sometimes there's two windows happening, and two screens, and it tends to open in the other screen. So here I'm using a noise blend, which is a function I threw together. It's doing some blurring by the border, empowering. This is probably giving someone nightmares. Someone that actually knows Unreal well is looking at this and think, oh my gosh, what are you doing? What are you doing? But what it does is it adds that sort of variation there, and because it's all handled through parameters again, means on my test landscape I can just go to my noise area, scale it differently based on what layer it is, change what the blending is like. If I set it's just the dirt, you can see that there's two different color. There's a color noise and a color wash, so they're the two that are competing, and you don't really see it come through as green because it's doing that blend. Spaghetti. Is that dinner, or was I showing something that looked like spaghetti? Now you can see, well, that's the dirt. That's not the dirt one, this is the dirt one here. What I actually had to do when I was testing this out is ramp the strength up to something that would glow. So if I put that to 5, go back here, you're not really seeing it. It's because the strength is low as well, so noise angle blend. Oh no, we've got the blend strength this high, but if I just put it higher, still not seeing it. So it might be a different one that's used more. Probably is. Anyway, it's not actually the point of this, but yeah, probably not just seeing that at all. I've probably got something set incorrectly, but I would use that to actually pinpoint what the shape is that's coming through. And yeah, as you might have seen, there's lots of fakery happening here. So my landscape is lots of models that come with the Unreal content over the place. So we've got, what do we got? Background landscape and plains and more background landscapes. Just resized, a few bluffs here and there. Just to make it look like from a distance here that we've got something happening. And that's just a temporary measure that I'm using. I will, yeah, the spaghetti, it is a bit spaghetti, but it's much better than it had been. At least at the top levels, it's much better. So, I mean, looking at this, there's a bit of spaghetti, but you've got your boxes to make it nice and clear compared to, I don't know, that was a simple one. It has been worse and it's been better, of course. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is, I've sort of highlighted where I'm going with this, but what I really want to do is have, I guess, a layer that's a bit clearer to use. So I really want a dirt layer, a rock layer, and probably a snow layer, so I can still paint those over. I did a little image share today on Twitter where I did some notes that I had made during lunchtime, and I might just pop that into the chat just for anyone that wants to look at it. It wants me to log into Twitch, of course it does. And I gotta put my password right. It's on a different screen, I hope. Yes, it is. So we're looking at this image. So layers to be based on sediment. That's the main one, really. So instead of having this stratification happening like that, what I'd like to do is have it just one material that sort of layers jittery depending on where it's put. And where I'm going to go with that is I'm going to load up my test landscape area. So I've got test levels because I don't like doing on this because it does rebuild everything. I'm going to drop into levels. We've got testing and test landscape. And what I was saying I would do, okay, we're not going to change that one. We can, don't worry about changing that one either. Okay, we're not going to save any of that. Yeah, where I was going, even though I'm using fakery at the moment to get that sort of background stuff happening, I'd probably switch back to using world composition to get some, I guess, more detail happening in the background. Previously had it using that, but then when I was doing some experimentation with just scalable graphic settings to make it run better on different hardware, it looked like I had to switch to a different version of the not the renderer, but the customized settings. So that was somewhere in here, target hardware. So I thought that I'd had to change it to scalable, but it did start, I forget exactly what it was, but there was something that I couldn't use with world composition that I was using that I might not be using anymore. So I switched to that method, but I will probably switch back and make things a bit smaller and have a few multiple landscapes happening instead. Alright, so first of all, what I want to show is last Friday, so no, today's not Friday, today's just Wednesday, sorry, anyone that was hoping it was a Friday. Last week I started trying to do a new material. Started a few different attempts at doing a new material, so let's go with this one first. So if I remember this one correctly, this is the one that's doing, it's pulling in the same existing functions that I've already got and then just doing a lerp. So this is a copy of the lerp by 4, so if you that multiple float 3 and 4, it's just a copy of that, just converted to use material attributes instead. Then it's just doing that lerp up here, and then to actually work out what it's going to use for the alpha, it's this. So where I started was getting the X and Y bands. That goes nowhere, but generating some offsets, and if I preview it, you might see what that looks like. Though it depends on the scale, so you can see that's got a cool little effect that goes around. You've got a mix of warpiness for whatever area you've got, a bit of noise that's bleeding through on top. See, that's that noise. Of course, I came up with this through either not so much trial and error, just first go at running through, then try to apply it back to the main material, and had my whole Unreal instance crash and seemingly lose the material. Didn't realize until yesterday that I'd actually done the original version of this material on the old 4.19 project rather than the 4.20 project that I'm currently on. Anyway, you can see this is all just one layer. It's again still controlled by all those so I'll use the instance of it because that's a bit better. See, this is all controlled by one layer. There's blending here and there, there's dirt and patches. So you can see that's got a blend of dirt, it's got a blend of the stone. There's not much in way of the patches, and I think from memory, no, it doesn't seem like it. I thought I had put some sort of height blending in on this as well, but no, it's really just the stone and rock material functions that I'd created. It looks fine, like it's okay, it's not amazing. Might even have the slope set to be rock. That looks like the dirt texture there. You can see what that is, I'm not sure. Yeah, that shows up the cursor. Yeah, so that's what that was. Then the one that you saw when I first loaded, this was one of the other ones, because I've been trying to recreate it, and I think it was not this landscape master, it was this one here. And this one, funnily enough, is actually fairly simple. It's not actually doing any colours at the moment, but the way it's doing the blending is like the bands is just through noise and distortion. So that's all just something that could be fed into a lerp. And I could actually feed it back into that same lerp with the 4 material attributes, but I also want to get away from that method of doing it. Because other than just the fact that there are 7 layers, I want to actually make it a bit more optimized for when it's doing the snow and the rain blends. So first up, I'll load up this one. Now, it's not super spaghettied. You You can see that there is a bit of a height lobe happening there, so we're not seeing that at the moment. And I think it's because we're just doing the clamped values here. Or if I were to pull this one in instead, let's let that save. It'll do a little rebuild there, so you can see you got your color variations now. So and you could also feed it in so certain heights had certain preferences for types of rock or whatever else. See, it's very liney though. It's like maybe too liney. And that's using all this. So if I drop that to 0.1, that didn't really make much of a difference. And I think it's something else doing that. It's hard to say without. I'll just put it off screen for a sec so I can try it. Yeah, so I'm just changing the height streaked visor that's being used, which is this one here. So that's feeding in the well position B, dividing by that, and then we're using the frac to pass in the offsets for the that one is the so that's the x-axis. But there's other ways you could do it too. If I drop the plane modifier, you can see it changes around. I can change the streak offsets to move things around too. But what you can definitely see with this is the band is much nicer than the one that was happening on the other layer. And if I were to ramp that up a bit more, so let's go height bandwidth up to say 0.8, thickens it up. We can change the height band sharpness. No, that's fine at 0.1. Height modifier to 8192. And then now you're getting the sort of thing that we'd be looking at getting. You can see that's already much nicer than just through a few material tweaks. Pop that into play even 1. And what I could do is, I think that's I've been trying to use base 2 numbers, but yeah. And the other thing I could do from here is go, okay, that's one layer, but feed in some other layers of a similar sort of stratify happening. And what I did like about this one, if I take the material, go to sculpt, go to flatten, and just make it big enough that I can actually see that. I can actually cut into it at a certain point, and you get the actual color that was there at that point too. So if on the band it's yellow, when you cut in, it starts being yellow there. If I cut in here where it's sort of cyan or there, you can see it's just maintaining that same color, which I really like that aspect of this particular type of material, where you don't see that so much in one of the other ones. So that's how I might just rename it to alright, so if I pull it back to this one again, in fact I'll keep with the instance just so we can change things on the fly. What this is doing, and it's very similar, I mean, we showed this before, it's doing the same sort of blend, but See, it blends differently depending on what the height is. If I cut in, you don't get that same sort of layer effect happening. So if I cut in here, you can see, because it's based on what the dot product is against the vertex normals here, so that's this part here, you're seeing it actually change a bit more. And yeah, I guess what I really want is to have something a lot more like that first one, which I might just throw onto another landscape. I'll throw it back onto this one, because we've got this on the other. I want something more like this one. And if it's like that with layer depending on what level it's at, then that's a good start. Yeah, so that's what we're looking at. What I'm going to do then is create a brand new landscape just on this test level. So manage new landscape, which we're already on. Here's some settings I put in earlier, so we're just going to get a 16 by 16 on the number of components, just a 127, so this will be it here. Although that looks, nah, it's probably more detail than we need at the moment, which is for testing, so I think quads is fine. I might just bump that up to 63. I'll leave it at 31 by 31, but jump this up to 2. So it's really just bigger. And we don't really care too much about the specifics of what these settings are like, because at the moment it's just going to be to see if we can create something that does the right colouring and landscape stuff. So I've created a brand new folder called Smart Layers, and that's where I'm going to start. So first up, I'll create a new material. It's called Smart Landscape, and pretend that I know what I'm doing. For this one, I'm going to select it, put that in, and we're going to get this turned into a big black landscape of nothing. There it is, nice and shiny. Pull that here. Just going to plug in some basic values into the metallic, specular and roughness. What I'm really looking at doing here is getting a basic sort of outline of what the material would be like, and then later on plugging in with all the parameters and that, which is going to make it a lot easier to optimize and configure according to what the level is. And at the moment, not going to worry too much about normals. It's really just getting the first layer blending right. So, cool. Where to start? What I really want to do too is, instead of using this smart layer directly, the smart landscape, make a material instance and use that so I can start plugging that in. It means later on, or hopefully soon in fact, I'll be able to plug in some basic parameters for scaling, which will let us both preview correctly at the material, on the material itself, like this, well, once it shows, and also on the landscape. And just because of the way I like doing things now, I'm going to create a material function, which is going to call mf base noise. That'll do. None of this is pre-planned. I'm making this up as I go along, so it's going to be wrong. Alright. So going from what we had before, I'm just going to open these up again. So we've got the height based one, which was the one we like. That's the really cool one. But then I like the other aspect of the other one. So you can see why I'm having a bit of trouble there with actually getting this all happening. I've also got all these random ones I started yesterday, but I thought, I'll just wait and do it properly. Not going to bother with the layers, landscape bands. I think this is me trying to optimize or refactor, as is this. As is this one, base area. Yeah, that's totally yet another one. And you can see it's just done for the flat level. We don't want that. We want this to basically just be the rock layer. So the idea being we have a rock layer as the basis, which will be our default. Plug in an extra layer for dirt, gravel, whatever else is going to be the paint over layer. At that point we probably wouldn't do snow. Snow and ice would be part of a separate layer. And what I'd probably do is have noise masks coming in. So again, looking at those notes from earlier, having a noise mask to determine the placement of ice and snow, probably independently. So that way you could have some patches where it's just always rock or always dirt, and also having like a blend amount on those too. But again, it's got to start with the first layer, which is going to be the base. So it's not this one. Let's move these out of the way. I'm also moving these out of the way so I can refer to them without having to block up the screen. So we've got stratify height, base noise we're keeping over here, and smart landscape we're keeping over here. So first up, let's just give it a quick output so we can plug this in properly. Material function. And this is going to be MF base noise. And I should save this one first because it's got an output, and then we can plug that in to the base color. Cool, so we can actually close that one now. We don't need to modify that directly. And if I look here, that's not quite, there we go, it's rebuilt it. If I were to change the function to say 5. I mean, this is nothing amazing, but yeah, it's alright. So you can see it's sort of whitish. It's really a grey, but all the lighting and that's bringing it up. Alright, so for noise, again, I'm going to cheat and refer to everything I've done previously. And which one have I got? That's the alt. I've got the stratify height. I've got landscape components. I think I was, at one point I was thinking of having it try and calculate which component was where, but it's messy. If you want to see spaghetti, this one is probably more spaghettied. No, okay, that was really basic early stuff. And this is how it starts. This is, you don't just go in and be mad from the start. It happens gradually. You start like this. You start simple, and then you end up. Where is our dirt? Then you end up here. So you start simple and end up here. That's how it goes. Alright, so we've got our base noise. We don't need much else right now. So let's get some cool stuff happening. Right, the one it's the flatness that we really want at the moment, but we also want this to be, it's the base for the rock. So what we're going to get is our world position. We're going to break it, because that's what we do. We're going to take the B, which is our X, sorry, it's our Z. We're going to divide that. We're going to plug in that. Set this to say 256 for now. And what I might just do already is convert that into a parameter. So this is our height divisor. I definitely recommend renaming things after the fact when you decide what they really are doing. But renaming them in the first place so you can see it on material instance is always a good idea. Okay, if I plug that back in there instead, this is our base noise, and now we're going to get one color, and it's again this white. That's because we've got a flat landscape, so let's just modify that a bit too. So we don't care so much about what the quality is like, so let's put the brush size up. Tool strength is okay, so that way we can move it around quickly. Let's make the fall off a bit nicer and go, whoa. Oh, you can see that's already gone whitish, so that's gone up a little higher. And then as it gets lower, look at that. Now that's because we're pretty much, I think this is at 0, 0. What you'll notice here, because it's based on the world position too, as I move this, okay, not the gizmo actor, but the actual landscape, as I move it up and down, yeah, it's based on that. So that's possibly not what you want, so what you would normally do is put in a position offset. I guess you could do that. In fact, let's try that. Back to position and world space. This is something new, hadn't thought of before. We're going to take the absolute world position minus that, so we're going to base it based on there, pull that in. Now I'm not sure if that's going to be positive or negative because I haven't really looked into it. Oh no, there we go. Did it? That's what it is. It's so based on whatever our average is here, it doesn't actually care. So you're always going plus or minus. And what you'd probably want to do then is put an offset. And maybe do that. I suppose you could do it after or before, it doesn't really matter. Okay, minus. This will be height offset. Again, making this completely up as I go along. And at the moment we're not really doing much in the way of base noise, but we're getting our starting point. So, look at that, all like that. Now this is already applying the, that offset is happening after the divisor, could also have done it before, it doesn't really matter. But what I can do now, if I go down to the material instance, it's gonna keep it here, but just make it here so you can see what's happening. 0, minus 10, almost 10. You can see it does that. Now that's per, I guess, 256. One being 256, if I drop this to say 64, you'll see it change again. Yeah. So that's a way you could do it. Now, in real terms with a full-size landscape, what are we talking? I wouldn't be scaling this up at all, but I will just put that to its maximum height. Let's ramp that up too. Right, that's the maximum. Let's get a bit of flattening happening, but reduce the strength so we can actually get a bit of variation there. So you could do this for like water levels even, I suppose. But that's not what we're doing here, that's not the intent. And of course this is just because it's just based on what the amount is. We're just getting the 1 or the 0, aren't we? And that's not really what we're after, but this is meant to be just something to feed in to another thing. So I'm just going to drop those off for now. Back to what our default is. I might just set this that default to 0. 256 is fine, but for the offset we'll just keep it the default at 0. Anyone having nightmares yet? Alright, so that's what we're looking at with the 0 offset. Now, here's what I found, which is really cool. Let's do 2 of these. We're going to do 1 generated band and 1 with offset too. So, we don't want the width, we want it in the coordinates. So you put the coordinates in. So keep in mind with these coordinates, it's just the Z that we're pulling in, the height. That's not going to work. Oh, I don't know about that actually. Kind of works, but not. A bit trippy actually. And what we're seeing there is it's like that because we're not actually using the vault position. Really. So I think while this is a cool kind of thing, let's do this instead. Let's drop that, the actual position. Let's just use the offset, drop that one, take that. So the offset will be actually in real Unreal units. Yeah. And save that and jump back in. And part of what we're seeing here is just the fact that a landscape happens at a much bigger size than what our material preview does. So I pull open this again. We'll set this up to, what do I say, 184. How's that look? Yeah, it's okay. Let's just go for 196 then. Again, trying to use base 2 in the theory that it might be quicker, but the fact that it's also passing it as a float means it's probably not at all. So whatever. Anyway, it's configurable. So that's nice. Nice way to get bands easily, and if you're making a Beetlejuice themed game, then hey, you're done. At least I'm probably not remembering Beetlejuice correctly, but anyway, you might have a reason to have it like this. Besides being terrible. I mean, there's valid reasons and being terrible. Right. And the other thing you can see, because it is based like this, because it is just purely based on what the height is, if I cut in, we've obviously got How cool cut-ins happening. I'll make it a bit bigger so we can see that. Strength a bit bigger too. We get our white where we need it. We get our black where we need it. Hey, look at that. That's just purely based on height. So what I want to do now is make that not so straight. To eradicate straightness, particularly as we're talking about landscapes. But, you know, get rid of it. Whatever. So what I want here is bring in some noise. So I could use noise. Problem with noise is then we need to either scale it, which means we kind of do it through the UV position, but we don't want it through the UV position. What if we bring it through this through the same? Is that gonna work? It likes it. Hey, you know, that's actually not bad. Okay. That's interesting. What's going to be our... Oop, not convert to parameters, just preview. What happens if we plug that into offset? I mean, it's okay if I plug it in now. What's it do? Scales off, but, you know. Okay, scales not quite there. We'll see how this goes. Now you can't really see much happening there, but if we get closer... No, we're not seeing anything happening there at all. Now, is that the fault of this? Could be the fault of the scale again. Okay, that's getting something. So what I like about doing it with this noise actually is it's actually coming through like different layers and they're not consistent. They're like sometimes it's big, sometimes it's little, which I like that. Now, I don't know if it's better for me to be using a noise function versus an image sample. You can answer that if you know. But you may not either. You see, I like the fact that we can just pull that in. Of course, we want that to also have some noise vertically. Sorry, well, we want it to sort of distort the line a bit as well. So how do we do that? Again, if you know, please speak up. What I'm going to try as well is just plug that into offset instead, and no, that's just, sorry, compare, but that's not working. So I don't mind that. Now, when I previously did the stratify height, I did use, what did I use here? I did a subtraction. So I think I had just a very basic offset band happening. So if I go start previewing, so that's what I was doing. I was using noise into the offset, which is what I'm doing here, but it was partially based on... No, there must be something else to it. So if I still got the absolute position correct, there was an offset, but it was based on noise, which I'm using, but it was also minusing the dot product. So we can try that, but I don't think that's going to cut it either. Oh, that's why. Okay, so at the moment, the reason why I'm not seeing the sort of noise that was happening previously, I'm obviously plugging in the breakout of Z or blue, which means that all of the noise is happening on a straight area. If I were to bring that in again, just do it without that, pull it in here. I mean, that's terrible. Pull it in better. I might just try this. Maybe I've been trying to over-engineer this. Well, of course I have. You've seen it. Okay, well that's not it. That's not. No, that's wrong. But instead of... Okay, maybe I need to do the same method I used before, which is to take the landscape layer, divide that by something, pin that into position, which means that our offsets then are based on where on the map it is. That's taking a bit of time to load, I'm not sure why. Oh yeah, it's totally taking a bit of time. Give this, so we've got landscape news offset. Not offset, it's really scale. We're going to say now what I am seeing is nothing. I'm not sure if my function is right. Yeah, it's literally just stopped. I'm not sure why. So let's start with this. Okay, so that noise one's fine. Scale that's fine. It's this it doesn't like. Let's just try a different. Doesn't like the position being like this. Now, from memory, early on when I was trying to do some noise for the level of snow, very early on I found I would be able to create the right look in through the noise module or what node, but then be unable to plug that in further. So it does seem to be what I'm getting here, it's just not doing it. First up, let's see if we can make float 2. Okay, also getting a bit of lag and I'm not sure why, so I'm just going to save everything. Shouldn't be too complex. Oh yeah, that's definitely doing something. Not much happening in updates. Any luck there? Nope. Alright, I'm going to go back to my texture sample and try it with the Perlin noise instead. So Don't know about that. Let's try it that way instead. Yeah, not too sure about this. Enough components. Oh, right. Okay, well I know what that one's off. I was using the wrong level. That's that now, that's this now. And you know, that's kind of better. We probably want that at a bigger scale. So, does that mean... I think that means increase it, so I can try it with the... Bit blurry though. Don't like the blurriness of it, but you get something. And it's a bit smarter. I flatten in at this level. We mostly get the white. A bit bigger so I can... Yeah, I mean... That's how I sort of want it to work, just with a few more layers. Not too keen on... Now that blur, it's got to be to do with the texture size too, I'd say. Alright, let's see if we can get it back to the noise version. Don't know what that does. I'm just testing something that probably won't work. Not sure about it at all. It's strange. That's something, but again, not really what I want. Part of that's the scale, part of it's just, it's not jittery enough. So what I need... This... Change the sample source to wrap. I do that because you've got a maximum, I think it's 16 texture samples you can use in the landscape, and previously I've been running into that limit. Not really seen much reason not to do that. Alright, I'm going to try a slightly... Let's just go UE4. So what it seems like is I would need a larger noise. So let's try this again. No, it just doesn't like it. Doesn't say why either. That noise just, I'm not sure about it at all. Right, the other thing I'm going to try instead How's this go? That brings the same noise in. Go with that as the offset. So we're using the same texture sample. Ugh, that's not going to do it. Not because of the texture sample itself. We got that same issue again. Keep doing that, don't I? It's using the same UV. We'd need more than just one. But yeah. Just not sure. That does get our stripiness. Can we feed that back into another texture of the same type? I don't know. No, of course not. Float 3 to float 2. We make a float 2. Wait, no, we want this to be... Local to RGB. Oh, right, that's trying to go to 2. Okay, so we need to make... Nah. Okay. Now, we've got this other version of the generated bands, which is a bit different. I'm going to switch over to it for a moment. I'll plug that back into there. I'll keep the rest the same. Because what I'm thinking is, if we go to this one, these are our line ones. That's not the one we want though. That wasn't it, was it? It was this one. No, that's the one that's not working. It was this one, I'm sure. Alright, let's try through here. Oh, that's interesting. So while I had it working with the texture sample independently, which is doing the was doing that line across, I just go to this one, you can see what it looked like. It was like that. And then I had it also doing the preview. Now the other option would be to plug that instead into the noise instead of bands and see how that worked. So I'll just plug this up here too, just so you can see what it looked like in case you're joining later. What do we got here? So that's replicating the sort of streaking that I want in a way, in terms of how thick the layers are. We've also got this one, which is getting jitteriness, but we want it across. So let's try this one first with the width. Not doing it for me, to be honest. We could try it with a compare. No, that's not it either. It's interesting, but not it. Now, I'm going to remove that from the offset, try width from this way. Nah, that's not it. Yeah. That's interesting itself, but it's very much, I don't know, it's like a graffiti type print. If you say throw that onto a text material, that'd be interesting. Looks like it's freshly painted, but maybe streaked. I'll go back now to get this. So we've got our streaks. That's already interesting. And instead of in the width, we can put that into the offset. Yeah, maybe. Let's try it. Scales off, so I can fix that up a bit. Just put it up to big size. Maybe that goes the other way on this one now. Not really. I think it's just too many bands. That's off. That's too clean. That's less clean, but nah. So there's obviously there's diminishing returns on that. As on that. The other option would be to increase or decrease. I'm not sure which way it would go. Because we are using noise here. To make the noise bigger. Goes. Trial and error. That's awesome. Mostly error though. Okay, that's not so good. Yeah, I think the main problem here is it's just happening at too big a scale with too much in terms of littleness as well. Maybe bands is not the place for it. Let's try it without the bands. What do we get? That's not great there, but it's also... let's try something else. That's interesting again, but nah, not yet. Not sure. I mean, in theory, that aspect's fine. The fact that it's black and white is not great, but maybe once it sort of blends a bit more between it. So what do I need to do that? I'm just doing a lazy way of trying this. So this one's happening at that scale, this one's happening here. I feel like the sharpness doesn't really quite get there. Don't think that compare does much, that helps. No, I'm just guessing. To be honest, I'm just making it up now. Seeing what I can do. That's not really doing it. I think we're actually regressing a bit here. So I might just knock it back to where were the offset bands. Sharpness is fine. I feel like it's not actually blending. I don't think the fallouts, the fall off is really that smooth. But we are looking at, I guess, that sort of scale. And were we better at the start? Kinda, scales off, but I think it's better. I'm gonna try something different again. Trial and error is awesome. Nah, the problem with that is it's just too dependent on the bands that are already there. We don't want those bands at all. I feel like part of the problem is it's just not got the generated bands in a cool blendy sort of way. So what if instead, so I start previewing that one again, that's nice. Now we just go for complicating it. Let's see if it's the generated bands or the offset bands that look better. I feel like it's those are okay. What's the offset bands doing? So what I had back in this one, let's see it better here. Tried to do that banding more so when it was looking at just the dot product side. So that's got the cutoff point to say, depending on where it is on the band, it would adjust how much it took away or gave. Which is an interesting way to do it, I guess. And then that was applied over the top of this other one. So we still had this happening at a different sort of level. So that's on the X. Well, they're both. It's hard to tell with both of those actually. Start seeing it like that. Yeah. Guess it's not really quite there. And I'm just guessing a lot now. I know what I want is this sort of distortion happening. Where is that? I feel like that's not even showing up properly now. Yeah, that's not. It might be because we changed the scale. placement maybe. I don't know what's going on here. Like that. But I think that was the one that was too detailed here. I mean, other than the fact that it just evens out to be straight because of the scale it's at, it's actually okay. So what if it... So let's try to swap these around and see which one has... Okay, so that's got more of the distortion effect happening. So I'm wondering if I, instead of doing it this way with the noise scale there, if I instead feed that through parameter, not a parameter, a different figure, so not this one, but got a height divisor, sorry, no, landscape noise, just here. Again, trial and error. So I'm trying to just modify, well, you can sort of see that happening, so the theory is there. We just need that to be bigger, especially that going into the offset. Go across. I gotta move my instance. Again, stuff from nightmares here, I'm sure. Guessing this is roughly 0. What would be cool is to do that. a scale first. Floor it. That in. Just using it to modify what scale that's happening at. Now it's looking like something interesting. Now we'll get that happening on both sides, so it happens all around. I don't like that being straight like that, but maybe we're near the 0. Easy to find out. Let's put that there. What's our... I don't know. Should see if we move it left over from this side. I don't know. Again, it's sort of different, but not too perfect. Got weird things like that happening though. It's not that it's rotated strangely either, but I guess you would get that happening at angles because of it adding up and turning into little streaks there. That's a bit weird too. Oh, I know why that is. That's based on the landscape coordinates, not the world position. So not this one. I pull this back in instead. We don't need, because we've got this happening there. Pull it from the world position instead. And this is where you will see it start affecting it based on other aspects. So it scales off, but let's try a few different scales. You get the aspect there. God, it's a mess though, isn't it? Like, it's cool that it does that sort of banding like that, and individually within the thing it's doing it. But I mean, these lines, that's just, no, that's terrible. Here it's okay, but you can see that swoop through. try the base offset again and see if that's any different. Well, it'll be different, but see how it looks. Nice. That's not that. It does seem like it's the landscape noise scale that's the issue. So what if instead we just go take that out, put that back to a 1. Oh, just take it out for now completely. In theory, you wouldn't see it that close, or you probably wouldn't see it very often that close. For the most part, it's fine. It's just when it starts getting... Even there's fine. That just needs more of a tweak. Maybe it's okay, I don't know. So what are we using here? Using that frac stuff to offset. That seems to offset okay. Yes, that doesn't matter too much. I'm just increasing the offset. I'm not using the other one. Wait, we're using this one, are we? So even though I've been plugging that in there, I'm not actually using it. Is that right? Yeah, it's for a game. Earlier I had the previous landscape material I've been using, which has got 7 layers in it, and I'm just trying to break it down into 3 a bit more simpler layers to hopefully make it a bit more optimized, make it quicker to rebuild. So instead of getting my shader trying to compile 240,000 whatever it is every time I make a change, just to make it a bit clearer. And so I'm trying to get a basic mask for a rock/stone layer that has sort of stratification happening like this, but also that doesn't look too neat either. So I don't want it to look like it's literally layered exactly. Of course, the other option would be to vary what the offsets and masks is based on XY, so that might be the way to go. So since I'm not using that one, I might just drop that out. Just make this a bit simpler again. Thanks. I'll open up, I don't know if you saw earlier in the stream, probably not. I'll open up what the main level is, just to show you what I'm sort of working with here. But you can see this is just a brand new landscape material. Here's one I'd sort of thrown together previously, which is the same sort of concept, where it's using that banding, just with a 4-way lerp in there. And this one's a different way of doing that same sort of 4-way lerp, but actually blending in materials. Never mind how distorted that is there, but you can see the main part is actually blending, I think, 3 different material functions in there at the moment. I'm just trying to basically get it so there's 3 separate layers instead of the 7. Because over the top of the original layer there's also I guess a parameter driven snow covering layer, and there's a parameter driven wetness layer. Alright, this is what we're looking at. I might just get our generated offset again. I'll start with just the X or R based one. Do the same sort of thing where I probably won't worry too much with the offset at the moment. I'll just do a divisor, so divide that one there. So this is right to parameter. This will be our plane divisor X. Let's default it to 256 so I can see it nicely in here. This happening basic, just do a subtract, but we want to do that from -5, sorry, not -5, from 0.05, so we don't actually want to multiply at all, just so we can get some positive and negative happening. Scale is off, but we get something there. What we want to probably do is divide that again. We don't really want it to be by that much. Let's divide by 4, I think, but we can make that a parameter as well. So let's open the material layer again, so our divisor. And now you get that happening. So 8192 is probably a bit too hard to see. The other option too is I could actually blend this distortion out based on what the dot product is. The dot product of the vertex normal by blue. So what I might do, that looks pretty good. Do the same again. The Y happening here. We'll keep it at the same level. You can obviously make it work on different thickness and sharpness and all that later, which might actually get this to blend into. Do the same again. Now I can divide it after, I think. Oh, we want it like that, yep. Add those, divide there. And there. You know what, we don't want that, we want to multiply those two, I think. But of course, so we don't get too much brightness happening if it happens to cross over. Then plug that into there, get rid of that one, don't need to add any more. Divide that by 4, so we're not distorting too much. And how's that look? That'll still be a little bit distorted because the Y divisor is still 256. That's why you can see that like that. So I jump that up, 4096 again. And I think it actually might be worth trying without the divisor there, just to see how that goes. Should see these be a bit more pronounced now. Okay, so you get that. It's a bit weird. There's little diamonds there. Don't want that, I suppose. But this is for the offset, so let's pull it in like that. I'll default to 4. So if I pull this back in, got our divisor, I'll try it with a 2, 1, is awful, 0.1, it's interesting, 8, Four actually seems pretty good. Three, 2, 1. Two is good, I think. So all we have here, got the base landscape material, which is just pulling in this function from the noise. So well, the idea being, can make this a bit cooler in the future. Base noise is coming like this, which comes through and looks like you see on on the landscape itself. Now, because it's all the offsets and that, it's not too hard to go, okay, pull in this and just tweak the offset a little and see how it looks. So if I go, and this is actually in Unreal units now. You can see the distortion that sort of happens. So if I go between 0, 50, you can see some parts don't move. It's not just a straight distortion there. Yeah, it's a good starting point. Not convinced we're quite there, but we were never this close before. I think the height blending can happen later. And I guess just as a test, what I could do is copy this, set this to blend material attributes. I get my material functions that I already have in here, so got our blend target. Just not going to worry too much about, so we want our near scale to be, so say 20. The rest doesn't really matter too much. I think the defaults that used to be in there were good, but it does want them, so these are just to sort of set an offset to work out when to blend based on distance, so you can get different scale happening. Now at the moment that wouldn't be used, because what you would need to do is do alert behind and then between these two. What I want to do here is just do another material function call to get the rock texture. So we're using UF rock. That's the one. Yep, that's definitely the one. UF stone. Core stone. Okay. Don't know if this is core. Yep. Okay. There we go. So I plug in the displaced targets. Plug in the. Doesn't matter which one. So yeah, it would use the close and the far and then blend them together, and just to show what the actual bases are, set these, although I can actually make them. So I'll keep them as 0. I'll just go blend those two together based on the noise here. I just disconnect those, turn this one into make material attributes. This will take a little bit more to compile, I believe. And we are in a copy, so it's okay that I changed that just now. Alright, so let's bring that in. I'll make an instance though. Across. Let's see how bad it's going to have to rebuild. Oh, right, it would probably help to save. define. Hasn't done it yet. I'm looking at the right one. No, I'm not. I'm looking at the wrong one. Wrong landscape. So I'll just revert that one. Don't care about that one at the moment. Bring the AMI smart test. That's interesting, but the scale's all off. But that's also because we're not using the scale changes that I had made before. So that was the smart test. The one we've been previewing was this one, so I'm going to bring those values in. It's going to be at the bottom because it's not being grouped yet. So what do we got? Plane divisor. Let's bring it off screen so we can see it a bit better. Rain, snow, just so we can change it later. Not using the Perlin amplifier, that's for the other. Landscape noise scale, height offset, height divisor. Okay, it's a bit of double up though, because we're getting the band info that's not being used at the moment. We've got our divisors, offset divisor, which will be set back to 2, though with the textures in there it might actually look a bit different. So that's what I've changed here. Everything else is the default as per whatever functions they came from. So the water layer, snow stuff is still just default. Let's see. We're in the right one? Yep, but we're all glossy. What's going on here? Feels like it's not quite doing it. Our smart test. Is the parent the right one? Yep, parent's correct. Could be our tints. So it's gonna. There we go. So the default tinting is just off. Let's go for stone. Let's do this so we can see it a bit better. Alright. There you can see there's the two variations blended together. Our scale is probably off too. Yeah, no. No. Oh right, that's not covered by there anymore. It's not really using it, is it? Maybe. Using the material attributes. Plug that in like that. We're definitely getting some of it. thought I was being so clever by just plugging in existing things. Could be our near scale. Oh, that near scale's off, and our distance blend's not. That's the wrong way around too. That should be, say, 50. We'll just give it a 50 as well. And this should be more like 10,000. That can stay the same. Now it's actually compiling the shaders because it needs to show it. And now we've got something that's more like it. So in my previous landscape texture, that's controlled by parameters, which I'm not using at the moment because I'm just throwing it together. Alright, so let's get our tints happening. Alright, green. Nah. Okay, let's get rid of the rain too. Oh, it's already gone. There might be minimum wetness. No, there's no minimum wetness, but it's just plugged something in there. So we have snow. No, not at the moment. Okay. Colors, rock color, which has, because there's a bit of override there. Something faintly used, I might just set it so it sort of come through. It does feel like the it definitely feels like the green. Not the green, the wetness is being used at the moment, but it could be a layer thing, I'm not sure. So let's get the rest of the colour set up. It depends what the previous set has too. Don't know what that's about. I think the specularity might be higher on that one too. Let's drop our rock spec maximum. That's more like it, and stone to that will do. Right, so keep those as they are. It's far too shiny, you can see that. Maybe it's our... No, there's definitely something happening here. Alright, I'm just changing the minimum roughness on these. So, it was designed to be a bit more configurable. The same on this one, because that's just too shiny. And I think I'm also using the scale. That's usually, yeah, the near scale is usually a bit smaller, more like 25. I'll save that again. And so just with these these three functions, 4 if you count the base noise, you can see once this comes up, it is a bit more laborious to actually get the the shader compiled again. And is that showing what it's doing yet? Not yet. I think these instructions just seem over the top. That said, it's not too different to what the other one does. But here you can see what it looks like. Right, so what you're actually getting here, the rock textures already have that sort of stratification built into them, which is why you're getting the yellow and green, which is what's currently set on the landscape. So if I go rock, no, not rock. Oh right, that's the smart landscape. I want the other one. The not so smart, the smart test. Yep. I go rock color. A yellow one. Change to an orange-ish. Dark brown. We've got stone. So I don't think we've got the stone at the moment here. I think it's to do with the cut in. One thing it's handy to find where that's being put is to just put something really bright. And there you can see. So that's where that's coming through. That's coming through as orange because it's doing a sort of blend with whatever else is happening here. You could do this, drop it back to say really try and see where it comes through. Quite hard to see it at all though. It's very faint at least. Part of that too would be the default color here. Yeah. That shows you where we're working with. Start from that basis. You get that bit of variation there. Again, there is that, it is coming through somewhere, but it's hard to see. And at the moment, yeah, this is using these stratify settings, so depending on what angles things are at, so if I drop this to say 2, okay, you really can't see much there. The blend strength is quite low too. That's what you get. That's where the real blending is. 0.1. I think the scale is quite low too, so I could drop that up to put that up to 600 to get another variation. That's just moving those around independently. So even though it's cutting between a few different layers here, you can see it's just very different. I think this buffer is where the peak blend level is, so you can get that to come in even more, but that's just for the stratify side. Blend in from there, you can see it doesn't keep that side, it keeps there, but that's because that's the other texture. And you get these little dots on there. means you've got that sort of instant variation there happening. So, you know, it's not too bad. But what I'd want to do is actually streamline these two to actually feed in, to basically feed this into a function that sort of handle both sides of that, because there's nothing too special in there. They're both basically doing the same thing. The only thing I'd want to change is when we're actually blending in the rain layer, which is there, and when we're blending in the snow layer. It would also be handy though to actually, whatever does this combined rock and stone layer, to actually feed out an output that had what your rain mask is, probably height mapped or working with the Z, and same for the snow, which would probably be based more on dot product and just a bit of noise as well. So that's pretty much where it's at. It's nice. It's definitely misleading because that's already doing quite a bit of work, but it's doing it in one layer, which is handy. And yeah, blending that in. I mean, ideally what I'd like is to have that stratification happening regardless of what the dot product layer, what the angle is basically. So I don't want it to be reliant on vertical. I'd like it to be able to cut in at any point and go, okay, there's a bit of green here, so I want that green stone. Obviously it wouldn't be green in what I would eventually use, but just be able to cut in at any point and go, okay, get whatever that layer says it should be. That's pretty cool. From here, I don't know. Not sure, to be honest. I mean, there's probably enough there. That's what I was going to do, just quickly just show what those two blends do. Not the blends, the snow and rain. So if there's a bit of rain on here, it's pretty simple stuff. It just adds a bit of blueness to it, makes it a bit more slick and shiny. That's not really like a rain, like it's not really a full puddle. I'm definitely not bringing up not doing an offset to bring it up, but what I want to do is make it so it only really happens when it's flat. So again, that's probably somewhere where that would come in handy with the whole dot product and having a mask already. I'd also want to say, instead of using a separate ice layer, have it blend in on angles when it was like this, but probably on a very, very subtle angle. And the other one is to actually go back and put the snow. So it's pretty simple. You see too, that's also using the sloping to actually determine how strong it gets. If I put it to 1, it still doesn't do it, and it means already I've just got a lot of power there by actually just having it blend in that snow layer. Now this is a separate material, and you can see here it's actually got, I mean that's awful actually, but that's coming from the actual snow layer because I think it is running through noise, and because I did previously have 3 separate snow layers that were paintable, I'd probably look at using some combination of those depending on a mask to say, okay, in some places it's half, some places it's full. Just, that's pretty cool though. So if I just pop that open and just close that texture. Alright, but before I shut off, because I think that's probably enough work in this texture for tonight, or this material, save everything and then just load up the main project file. Not the main project, the main world file. This one. Yep. Not really using those grass types anymore. You can see here where I've tried to cut in with just a single layer, because at the moment the material is just like that. Those four coexisting on the one landscape, and you know, sure, it looks great. I'm just worried about performance, both in playing it and just the fact every time I have to make a change to it, it needs work, and I guess the stratification aspect isn't quite as good as it could be, which is where I sort of started trying to optimize it. You can see it a bit there, back into there, you can see there, it's got that sort of blending there, there it is too, but some of the height based ones are like super straight like that. Same as, I think there's, like that part there looks pretty straight, probably because it is just that one part like that, it's a bit too strong. The other thing I'd like to do on the other one, which I was showing, is have some sort of variation again on light and darkness on the same color. So maybe have that running on the XY planes as well, so maybe feed that same generated band that does part of the distortion through, modify it a bit so it's not too obviously the same thing, and just make things a little bit lighter or desaturated or a little bit darker. And at the moment you can see here, like, this is just painted over in so many different places. So I think in this particular area, which is like the main starting area, you've got, I'm not even sure, I think that's the clean snow, there's powder snow, there's dirt, there's rock, there's stone. Not so much ice on this area, but I was previously painting like little ice puddles at the bottom of, like, in corners and stuff that you probably wouldn't even notice. And if I just play it like this, you can see like it's almost wasteful, because other than in some places, like especially in the distance, you don't really notice that at the moment that it's not just one texture. There's places here, like there's a bit of variation there that says, okay, that's ice, I think. There was a puddle around here somewhere too, which I might have actually painted over by now. To see where it is exactly, maybe we'll see. It was a lot clearer before I started using some of the Unreal content. So the landscapes in the background, a lot of the base textures, which I've reused. And yeah, the actual material instance I'm using at the moment is long, configurable, messy. And I'm doing it like this, so obviously if I need to change something and change what scale things happen at, it's easy to do. It is worthwhile, like, don't get me wrong, even though it's complex and takes a while to rebuild, what it can do is nice, especially if I go other places. So not so much here where it's all in the white texture. If I say open up my instance, modify the landscape, so I'm just going to override the landscape values. That's not really doing it, is it? No, so I'll just close that one. If I fast forward, is that a shortcut to fast forward the timeline? Expand it, you can see. Especially as it gets darker, you can see the gloss shows from all the rain that's happening. You got the nice purple colour happening. Yeah, there's a whole mess of weather blueprint stuff happening in the background. It's got colour curves to determine based on time of day what it should look like. It's all actually quite random. There's just something that says during certain times of day it's more likely to either get foggier or clear up. The colour is more likely to be according to time of day, but there is some variation there. There is some sort of weirdness too. That's kind of how it looks. I'll speed it up. Like the anti-aliasing is a bit high at the moment. I don't know. Sorry, it's a bit low. Looks like very pixeled there. I don't think it was like that previously, so maybe I've got some scaling setting active. I do like all the variation in colours, but it moves quite quickly through when I've got it like this, and it can get very foggy like this too. So the idea being that there's sort of an incentive not to go too far, as you would get lost. Anyway, that's pretty much it for today. Just put that there. Thank you for watching, and hope to have something cool to show soon. It's fine where I can end my stream. There we go. Cheerio.